All right, welcome to Google. I'm sorry, welcome to edcampGlobal, building a better community with Google Communities, and we're just went live here, so we had to change our links, some technical difficulties, but we're gonna give everyone a minute or two. Hopefully, we'll get an audience. We have question and answer on. We're live back channeling on Twitter here. Going to switch to my screen share, give it a minute, and then we'll be right back with you. All right, Danny, you back with us?
Yes, I'm back. I'm good. I'm here.
All right, it's come to my attention. I should probably pull up the correct presentation too. So we've had quite the start here on edcampGlobal. But welcome everybody. My name is Adam Schoenbart, and I am facilitating this session. And with me, I have.
I am. Oh, I get to say my new name, Danny Kenneth. Yay!
Danny Kenneth, because Danny Kenneth got married last Saturday night. So everyone on Twitter and viewing, our two viewers so far, say congratulations to Danny. And today we're going to be talking about how we can use Google Communities, formerly Google Plus Communities, to build community and engage learners in our classrooms. So if you have any questions throughout today, if you have anything that you'd like to share, the question and answer field app thingy is live, and we have Danny moderating that for us. We also have, we're both live on Twitter, trying to keep track as we go. So with the edcampGlobal hashtag and ECG 2015 hashtag, feel free to jump on in. So if you have any questions, please join us. All right, so start off here. I'm going to pull up some presentations and communities, and we'll be jumping back and forth between our us talking to you and some showing a presentation, some work, and seeing where the day takes us. So before we start that, why don't we introduce ourselves, tell a little bit about us. Danny, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I am Danny. I work in a high school in New York in the suburbs, and I teach social studies, special education. My school is not a one-to-one school, but Adam always likes to say this, but I hoard as many laptops and Chromebooks as possible. I am passionate about educational technology, and I am really excited to be here with you guys today.
And I am Adam Schoenbart. I'm a high school English teacher and a Google education trainer. I teach in Ossining, New York. Now this being edcampGlobal, I'm hoping we have people all around the world, so that's pretty cool. I teach in a one-to-one Chromebook classroom, and about 2 years ago, I jumped on the GHOA bandwagon and started teaching full Google Classroom, and or my classroom was a Google Classroom. Google Classroom wasn't around yet, but with Google Communities being the first tool I really used. And what I've always found about Google Classroom since then, I'm sorry, Google Communities since then, is a lot of people and a lot of districts don't use it with their students. And I kind of think they're missing a huge opportunity because of that. So before we continue, I'm going to share my screen here because I have a presentation that I like to use. And one of the things I find is oftentimes you're not going to get through the entire presentation, and that's on purpose. I don't want to sit and give you and talk at everyone. Hopefully we can make this as much of a conversation as possible, but I'm assuming my screen share is working. Danny, you see my screen here?
Yes, I see your screen. You're good.
Wonderful. Find this presentation you've got a link right there that you guys can actually find the presentation for yourself, because there'll be quite a bit that I'm sure we don't get to talk about, but you should be able to take with you from here and beg, borrow, steal, take whatever you like, and we will go from there. All right, so. Trying to switch. Today, technically, of course, the presentation day is the day when your plans don't go as you wanted.
What a great new slide.
So what I was going to show you all is this picture back here of me and Danny from 10th grade, and then this picture here of me and Danny last week at her wedding.
This is amazing, especially because your head is cut off because you're too tall.
I thought you'd like that as well. And Danny and I go way back, and we kind of grew up together, became teachers together, so we have an interesting take on each other's work and our perspectives in education. But here are our goals today in talking about Google Communities. We want to share practical strategies and activities that use communities to engage and empower students, leverage students' interest in technology, build classroom community, and promote student-centered active learning, as well as developing 21st century and Common Core skills. And so I'm going to give you lots of ways we do that. Danny will ask some questions. Hopefully you'll ask some questions, and we'll see where that goes. And like I said, as we are going through the session, feel free to jump in on the question and answer. Feel free to tweet with the edcampGlobal or ECG 2015 hashtags. Yes, I spelled that wrong. Now, communities at their core are a social network, and a lot of people get a little hesitant about that. You're here today, hopefully you're ready for that leap or you're there. But one of our great go-tos that Danny and I like to always go back to. Are you hesitant? Are you scared? Are you new? Are you concerned about letting go of the power in your classroom? Well, I guess what's going to happen now. One of the messages that we really want to stress here in terms of use of technology in the classroom, especially in use of things like back channeling and social networks and social media in the classroom, including Google Communities, is the need sometimes for the teachers, for the adults, for the sage on the stage to let it go, right? To try not to be afraid, give the kids the power back, and you'll be amazed at the learning that can happen in your classrooms.
Adam, what do you find is the biggest fear that people have about Google Communities?
I think a lot of people are afraid by the idea that communities are the social network, and for them, it's a place for the kids to socialize rather than really learn. But more than that, that Facebook is for socialization. Google, in my mind, is close to your domain if you're a Google school, so it's much more attuned for education. But there used to be a fear, I think, from a lot of districts and administrators that it wasn't as protected and secure, that if students can get on communities, they could talk to people in other outside of your domain, and you do hangouts and things like that. And I think a lot of people were just kind of afraid of that connection to the outside world that communities made really authentic. And which, to me, again, I'd say, all right, let's time this out.
So would you say a lot of it is establishing routines and using proper classroom management to kind of teach the students the correct use of Classroom and that it's different than how they would use Facebook?
Definitely. Routine. There. Okay, it's working out. All right, so I'm going to say routine and a little fun with it too, I think, is what's really worked for me. That we're going to make sure that the students know exactly what you expect of them. You give them concrete steps, but you also let them take the things that make it a social network and social media that they love from their own lives and bring it into the classroom.
Right, and that's great because that's a language that they're familiar with, because they're so familiar with Instagram and Facebook and all the other ways of using social media that it's nice to be able to bring that and those skills into the classroom where the students can actually use them in a productive and positive way.
Absolutely, and if that involves playing a little Frozen music in the background sometimes, so be it, but you find that with the things, when you involve that multimedia aspect and the social media aspect, that's what really, I think, it leverages the social capital and social media of the lives they live and lets you bring that into the classroom. And let's talk about some concrete ways to do that. All right, so our goal today is to talk about what Google Communities are and why use them in the classroom, how to use and create communities, and teaching with communities. And number 4 really will be our focus there. And as I was revising this presentation from ways I've done it in the past, I hit on this slide, what is Google+? But I guess the question should be now, what was Google+? So I'm hoping we're all, if you're here, you probably have a decent understanding of Google's features, but we're going to give you a quick walkthrough. Google+ was Google's attempt at a social network. They called it an authorship tool. It Hangout circles, communities and events were all part of it, but now it's really just splitting up. You have Google Photos, we'll have Google Communities, but the idea of Google+ and the social network is going away. So it really functionally, as far as I've read, and I've tried to do my homework on it, shouldn't be affecting a lot of the way Google's used in education or for any of us. But for in terms of terminology, Google+ is being phased out. Google Communities, which is the focus of what we're talking about here, those are here to stay. So Google Communities are groups and pages for connecting within Google. So think of it just like a Facebook group page if you're familiar with that, or whatever your preferred social media is. And it's a page focused on a common purpose or interest. Customizable features, privacy settings. Typically, if you are working within a Google domain, your Google community is restricted to your domain. You have the choice to either you have a couple privacy options. Option 1 is public. Now, I don't see why, for the most part, you would ever want option 1 at a secondary school setting. And let me add, in the past, Google+ was only open to students above 13 years old, meaning secondary level. I don't know how the phasing out of Google+ may or may not affect that. Your second option is to make it private, so that anyone can ask to join, meaning it's searchable. But students have to request joining and you as the moderator approve it. And option 3 is my favorite. You invite students to join and it's fully private. I go back and forth between options 2 and 3. Either way, my goal in my classroom is that my communities are closed to my students and they are shared among my students, where my English 10 class has a community, my SAT students have another community, sometimes you have multiple communities per class, sometimes you have one per a grade level or that you teach, depending on how you want to frame it. But the idea is it is restricted and private to my students in my class, so it's a social network that I now kind of have control over. So, all right, so let's go back to the screen share here. Having a little trouble, of course, going back and forth here. All right, so I've pulled up Google+ right here in my screen share, and plus.google.com is what gets me there. I'm going to show you just a couple things here on communities and finding them and creating them. If I go to plus.google.com, I'm on Google+. That address will likely change, but functionally, we have it is what it is. It would probably be the same or something similar. And when you put your mouse on home over this terrible, terrible menu that I'm hoping they update, we get to communities one day. I'm going to click my shortcut here, plus.google.com/communities for the sake of time and brevity and actually showing you guys something.
Adam, I'm sorry, as you're trying to pull this up, I just wanted to add, my school is my district is one of the districts that does not allow communities, but I think what you're about to show is even though your school domain might not allow for that, you can personally join communities. Are you able to show us some of the communities that you're in personally and professionally?
Mm-hmm. So right here you see this communities page, and if I wanted to create a community, I would simply click the blue button, and in my presentation, which I'll throw the link to on Twitter as well, you'll see a step-by-step walkthrough here how to do this. But all of these communities on top are ones I moderate, meaning I created them. So, for example, my English 10 students have one community for their 20-time work as a whole. All 3 sections I teach, we work on it together. All my other classes have their individual communities for each section. You cannot archive communities. You either have them or delete them. So I keep mine all active, which I love because I'm able to reach out to former students at any time. Now, if I scroll down, these are communities I've joined, meaning I didn't create them. So most of these are great public communities. Google Apps for Common Core, App Scripts for Education Builders and Users. If you do anything with Google Apps and add-ons, it's phenomenal. 1 or 2 are from my colleagues that I joined, my school, flipped classrooms. I have a couple PD ones from my personal district, but there's loads of communities. There are anything you would ever want a community on, you can find. And communities can provide great PD and learning. Whenever I have a question about anything Google related, I usually jump on one of these communities and ask. Before I keep talking, you can hear from us enough here. I want you to hear from someone else who's going to be able to give us the why. Why Google communities? Why does any of this matter? So I'm hoping we could, this is one of my students, Annie, here, and I'm hoping we can make everything work. Let's see. All right, I am taking a risk here. Danny, if I hit present full screen, are you still seeing my screen share correctly?
Yes, I am. You're doing great.
All right. Now, Annie's going to say it better than I ever could.
A lot of the stuff that we did in Magic was experimental, and it talked about anthropology, creation of all these things, and it was stuff we hadn't talked about in other classes. And it was so new, and it was so not understood. So the first thing that you could do is you could post a question on the Google page, and someone could respond to it, and you had a theory, and someone could give you an article or give you a YouTube clip that supported it or told you that you were wrong or gave you better information. And it was the first time that you knew that it was layers of research automatically that you couldn't have before. And we could talk across the room and explore all these ideas and then look it up and support it online and then bring it back together and relate it in a project that you could do as a presentation right on Google. And it was all of this stuff that we had never explored before. And it's so much information that you could organize at the drop of a hat. And you could explore at the drop of a hat and connect to everyone around you and see their theories and just learn so much information so quickly.
So Annie is not my ideal student. She was one of the best, but she was so eloquent, and I had to let you guys hear her talk about it, because to hear me talk about it is great, but hearing a student's perspective really, I think, adds a lot here.
Adam, do you find that a lot of your students, obviously Annie does, but do most of your students like using communities? Were any of them opposed to using it? Did it take some time for them to adjust to using it? What was that like?
I don't tend to get much opposition to communities. I get some kids who say, like, oh, I don't get why we're doing this, or are more ambivalent about it. But one of the things that I really try to do is I bring a lot of opportunities for them to have kind of more fun, low-stakes learning, or sharing their own ideas and knowledge and experiences. Things like, all right, it's a Monday. Hey, what'd you read this week? And what's something you watched? Go post about it. So it kind of engages them in that level, and then I'm able to leverage that for real classroom learning. I've had resistance at times to some of the blended and online learning, but rarely, if ever, students who are full-on resistant to Google Communities. I think it's the way they get to collaborate and the validation it gives them when you have things like feedback or a +1, or which is the equivalent of a like. I'll show you. The kids tend to buy in pretty quickly, in my experience. Now, my 2 years of experience is fairly limited. I can't say that's going to happen for everybody. But again, I think if you set those expectations of what you want, give them lots of opportunities for learning and a little bit for fun, it's worked out well for me in the past. All right, so I'll jump back to the presentation and let's start getting to the activities and the learning here. So one of the things what it comes down to, especially if you're joining us from the United States, Common Core, right? All our administrators want to hear about Common Core. So how do Google Communities support the Common Core? Well, Google Communities do a lot. I could really give you 2/3 of the Common Core standards and show you how they connect here. But I pulled out a couple kind of anchor standards here to focus on. So the activities that I'll show you over the next few minutes involve all the standards here. Close reading and inferencing, citing textual evidence, interpreting and analyzing words and phrases, integrating and evaluating content and media, visually and in writing, evaluating arguments and claims and texts, writing arguments to support claims, supporting with evidence, producing clear and coherent writing, using technology, and so on and so forth. I could have given you loads more. But one of the great things here is that I'm always able to tie back what I do with communities to the Common Core, to the standards, and really am able to defend these choices. And so through Google Communities, students build a real classroom community in a way I've never experienced before. They're collaborating, discussing, and engaging with class content and life outside of the 41-minute class period or however long your class period may be. All students are held accountable in participation, discussion, and communication, both in class and online. So while I do use flipped classroom sometimes, with Google Communities, what really works for me is the blended classroom.
Adam, I love that idea of being able to extend learning outside of your class period, because there are always spontaneous and unexpected things that happen, and you might want to kind of go off on a tangent or explore those things a little bit more deeply, and it really seems like Communities allows you to do that.
Absolutely. One of the key examples I'll give of that is back here. In the past, I've done a Shakespeare kind of lecture discussion, and it's always gone well. But last year, I stopped and I was like, wait, why am I doing this? And I gave the kids, I told the kids, get your computers, and all right, you guys, Shakespeare's life, you guys, Shakespeare's world, you guys, why are we still reading them today? Take 10 minutes, do your own research, bring your own knowledge to it, and then tell me what you think about it and apply it. And all of a sudden, I was able to get 30 voices instead of the 5 voices. Every student participated, every student was held accountable, and every student was able to develop those skills in new and interesting ways. So it really added, I like the authenticity that it allows too, where because it works like a social network, it's find a link, post a link, share something, either something you learned authentically or do a little research, find a link you like, and it works in that way that the students are used to, that it really embraces the spontaneity and authentic learning opportunities that we often find in our classrooms. I'm going to switch back. I'm going to keep this for the most part on the presentation, so you guys can get the full screen here. But I'm also going to tweet that link out. All right, so building classroom community is something I've talked about. It's kind of the trend here, that I'm a big believer in building that classroom community in the beginning, and it will be leveraged and pay off like you wouldn't believe. So I'm going to show you some examples of that. This student's asking her teacher what the difference between further and farther is, but we didn't ask her to. She was just curious, and the community gave her a place to do so. On the bottom, you see some winner signs that the students made based on a challenge they had on their community. Brianna posts, period 6 is still the reigning champ, never forget. They love using hashtags on the community. Abby, I miss you all. June, end of the school year. She misses her class, she shares it on the community. So what's great here is we have the opportunity for students to really learn and leverage their learning, but also it's a place for me. My kid wants to post that they missed class or they did something interesting. Great, go for it. Engage the class and do it. The student's getting published. Again, she posts on the community, gives these students a home. Evan, just holding on to what's left of the past, RIP senior year, crying sad tears. Danny, you see this date here?
I do, August 18th, 2014.
He posted in August that he missed his class.
And you know what I also love about this is you can see how many people kind of like or +1 all of this, and it's amazing to see that at the end of the year, 17 people liked a post. You know, it really does build a sense of community, really, and a sense of togetherness, and you can really feel that the kids appreciated this and learned from it and used it as a tool in such a positive and productive way.
Absolutely. One of the first assignments that this teacher gave was to take a selfie at the school play, and you'll get extra credit and post it on the community. So this was actually the play almost me, and I was one of the directors, and here's the half an AP English class. Now, this is my class. I told my class, we need a hashtag. So I just asked questions. I was like, tell me, think of it. No one thought of anything, but Elliot posted a poll. I didn't know he posted a poll. In fact, communities had just added a feature for polls, so I didn't even know it was an option. And here we have Elliot posting his poll on Google, what our hashtag should be, all on his own. All right? I didn't ask him to do this, but he knew he had a forum for his learning where he can do things like this. Cassidy wants us to support the Austin girls basketball. Well, Cassidy was a student I had a year before this, and she posted on the community that for a year later, and people responded because the community connects students during your class and outside of it. Do you think Ellie Wiesel ever regrets publishing this book? Janice says about Night. Look at that. This was not a requirement. She asked a valid, authentic question and got student responses. Right now we're transitioning to how we're building from the community to real learning. Brutus the traitor ends up dying. Karma or not? Well, Demetrius could have been a little more maybe eloquent, right? He gets his point across. Again, something he just wrote because he felt like responding.
Adam, you might address this a little bit later, but as I'm looking at all of this, and I've seen this presentation a lot of times, but I'm always reminded about how much I wish I could do this with my students, because it really does seem like such a unique forum to have them participate. But you know, I don't have Google Communities, like I said, at my school. Is there another way that I can kind of facilitate those connections and that kind of relationship that you're able to have with Google Communities? And again, if you're getting to that later, you can hold off on that, but I had to ask.
And actually, are you seeing that on your own, or did you see on Twitter?
No, I'm saying that on my own. Why? Is it on Twitter?
Yeah, hi Sharon. Sharon just posted asking, what about Google Communities for elementary students?
Oh, Sharon and I are brain twins.
So it basically, for me, I look at Google Communities in my classroom as being the best tool for what I want to get across. Now, obviously, if your school doesn't allow Google Plus to be open or Google Communities, or you have students under 13, there's just no option there. But some alternatives that you could consider, if you are using Schoology or Edmodo, those are both online systems that have discussion features and have kind of that social media integration in some ways. I haven't used either extensively, but I've heard good things about both in terms of these kind of applications. I would also recommend, in terms of discussion and application, Google Classroom can work, as can a public Google Sheet. Alice Keeler has an article on her blog about using a Google Sheet for discussion, or Google Classroom's discussion feature. I just don't think any of them are as good. The way that communities integrate the multimedia authentically for me and links and allow for responses and comments and feedback really is something that's unparalleled in my experience.
I completely agree. I've had to use Google Classroom or attempt to use it for the same purposes as communities, and the workflow isn't as nice. The none of it really matches up to the capabilities of Google Communities. So eventually, hopefully, I'll get there, but I think that your suggestions for people that don't currently have communities were perfect.
I'd also throw out Google Groups as a possibility, and I think Google Moderator might have some potential there as well. So there's a lot of Google products that might fit the ballpark of what you're looking for, but unfortunately, it's one of those things that I look at and I see, and I just haven't found something that I think works as well. I wish it did. What I want to get into here, and if you have more questions, throw them on Twitter. I'm watching. Throw them on the question and answer here. We'd love to hear from you. What I want to really focus on from here forward is the learning, the ways I do it in my classroom, the practical things that you may be able to take and adapt from. So why I love teaching with communities. I think that communities provide a meaningful interaction and engagement that I've literally never seen before in my teaching experience. They allow for the active creation of learning and content. Whenever my students create something, write something, it's done on community for a public audience. Somewhat similar to a blog at times, and maybe I'll throw out Blogger or other blogging platforms as opportunities as well. Communities build community and digital citizenship skills. They allow for the authentic integration of digital literacy and cultural capital. They allow for opportunities for feedback and collaboration. And I think these are my big 5 reasons why I think all schools should be embracing communities and not fearing them. There's some challenges. You have to teach the technology. You have to teach and model appropriate digital citizenship and moderate appropriate content. There are times that I have to go through and tell someone that something's not appropriate, ask them to revise or delete comments, but it's very, very rare. And with all technology, you have to be using the technology with purpose.
I think this is a perfect time to have those conversations, with it being close to the beginning of the school year for so many people. So for anyone that is thinking of integrating Google Communities, the beginning of the school year is such a great time to do it when you're establishing those routines and those expectations.
Absolutely. And I think these kind of things are the challenges of any technology that we all have to deal with and find ways to embrace, engage, and leverage in our classroom. So I think these are valuable skills.
Tell us about the Google Rebellion. I can't wait to hear.
One of my favorites. So Danny asked earlier what happens when a kid resists. And here's one case of somewhat of that. Adam says everybody is miserable. Baco Rebellion 2013. I love that hashtag. The class hashtag was Baco, so here we go. Now, Adam's not miserable about being on Community. He's miserable about the assignment and the difficulty. Aaron, I quit this class. Rob. Now, Rob comes in as the voice of reason, like he often did. Everyone, let's all calm down about how hard this project is and enjoy this exceptional Google Plus post by Matthew McConaughey. Evan Seligman gives a little comment there. And now Ellie's got a good one. Well, this got nasty fast, and now I've excerpted here. So there are about 20 comments in between. Well, this got nasty fast for some reason. So for some reason, you guys are acting like this is our first time group members have skipped out on their share of a project. All right, she puts a meme in there. Now the teacher comes in. Look at this digital citizenship. This survey is your opportunity to appropriately give us feedback about the group project. Survey feedback will be accepted and considered only until Tuesday, 12/10. So here you have students who have, quote unquote, rebelled, who have given their inappropriate feedback. And the teacher came in and didn't shoot them down, didn't yell at them, didn't discipline them, but modeled the appropriate ways to give authentic feedback. But even better than that is the students who self-moderated. The students who came in and said, hey, look, get over it. Here's what you should really be doing, right? Here's the way school works. And they kind of jumped in and helped. And I find that happens more and more where you don't really have the kids making inappropriate comments, because when they're doing it to everyone, right, they're not going to get away with it.
That's such a valuable, teachable moment. And the way that Katie, the teacher there, handled that situation is definitely a certain mindset that you have to be in to use these tools effectively. So I think that's awesome that all of that happened and the way that she handled it.
So with Google Apps for Education and communities in particular, I teach less, and I put an asterisk on teach. Of course I teach, but teaching shifted, and it's not the sage on the stage, but it's the student-centered blended classroom. And I'm working better and usually not harder. My students are collaborating, researching, investigating, writing, sharing for each other, for the community, for authentic audiences, and lately for the world. But one thing I want to stress here is tech isn't the lesson. It's a tool and it has to be used purposefully. And so here are the reasons I use it. And I'm thinking like on a lesson plan, when your administrator says, here's what I want to see, right? Building knowledge, right? Here's my teacher term or my administrator term. Assessing prior knowledge, anticipatory sets, active engagement, not lecturing, student inquiry. Linguistic turn taking is a big one in my district. Fulfilling IEPs by giving copies of class notes and absences, lesson plans to the administrators. Communities serve all of these purposes authentically and in fun, engaging ways. Here's a couple examples how. So here we have Halloween in our SAT elective. Write a Halloween-themed sentence completion using words from list 2. Post your sentence to the community, then answer someone else's. Ethan posts a sentence. We have the students write their own SAT-style questions all the time. It builds a lot of important skills and teaches them about the structure and format of the test. He brings in a video from YouTube, right? All on his own, makes it a little more engaging for his audience. Walter posts a question, and here we have multiple students responding, right? Walter answers. He has to moderate his own answer, and the students congratulate each other, right? Hurry up, am I right or wrong? Jonathan is eager for an answer. He expects immediate feedback, and he gets it through the community. Here we have multiple students writing sentences using every part of speech. So here, instead of diagramming sentences like many of us did on the board, the students are creating their own sentences, constructing their own knowledge, then collaborating to identify the parts of speech in the sentences and giving each other feedback. So all ways for them to collaborate and learn and build their own knowledge. Assessing Google community discussions now tends to be a little challenging. It's a lot of workflow, but I don't always look at everything in the same detail, but they're just like with any other grading, formative and summative assessment. We have the +1s, which Danny mentions like the likes before. Teacher comments, I'm a big fan of students commenting. I try to teach my students how to give effective peer feedback and assessment, and they give a lot of feedback to each other, and it saves me a lot of trouble, and then and a lot of work on my own, and then I have a record of all that discussion on our community. And of course, we have grades for summative assessment and my teacher comments and replies. Google Plus has a lot of great features here, like the +1. You can tag like you can on most social media, plus somebody's name, and you can tag them, they'll get a notification. It also uses hashtags, and it's intuitive with linking in multimedia. So I asked students to put a draft of a thesis statement on the community, and here we go. We have thesis statements, and we have discussion. We have on the left side, Alexis. Hey, Danny, do you see my mouse moving?
I do.
Oh, cool. So we have Alexis here posting hers. Right? Students are giving comments and helping her revise. Alexis then revises, and then I come in and comment, right? I get to read everyone else's comments, and sometimes I'll be able to say, right here, bottom right, Tyler, I gave a plus to it. Tyler knows it's good. I don't need to tell him specific feedback because other people already did, and he got the idea, and his work is good. Whereas Denise, people are giving her feedback, and I ask her to reword this. She knows that if I give her feedback like this, right, I'm trying to guide her to the right place, this is not an option. She's going to respond to my feedback. That I built that structure into my classroom so the students are collaborating with one another to build higher level knowledge and make sure formatively that the knowledge is strong and their work is strong before they move on to the high stakes learning. I love using Google Communities for discussion because they're so authentic, and I'll show you what I mean by authentic with multimedia. Here on the top left, I embedded a presentation from Google Slides that I created. It plays just like a video. It embeds it authentically. My students are now discussing I Kill Giants, a graphic novel, and Pan's Labyrinth, the film. Right, 25 more lines Claudia's gone on for. Right, this is great. It's tagged automatically with a hashtag fantasy based on the content of her post. I replied, as did other students. Mike's here is one of my favorites. Right, I love when my kids are making up hashtags. Homie was drugged up though. I'm not so fond of, but it actually fits the movie really well if you know Pan's Labyrinth. So we'll go with it. Vinny, Ellie, many other students reply, but Ellie's is the best here. At 05 to 13, Del Toro says, she found an interview with Guillermo del Toro on YouTube, watched the interview, cited evidence from it, quoted the evidence in response to this discussion on her own. Now, she's great and probably would have with or without Google Communities, but it gave her a platform for sharing and building knowledge, collaborating with her peers, and doing these important skills. And again, if we go back to the Common Core standards, all of those standards are right here in these posts. Through brief research assignments and community posts, students can also construct their own learning and help guide content, similar to what Ellie did. This is another way I really like using communities in the classroom by bringing in research skills. I gave you the Shakespeare example earlier. Instead of me teaching the class and giving them the background knowledge and lecturing, I asked my students to bring that knowledge for each other. Students are researching JFK in AP English, about to read a speech from him. Finding obscure theories, right? Something fun, something simple, and something quick. Commenting on the obscure theories, but it engages them and builds anticipatory set for the real learning to occur. Right? On the website, number 14, notice the screenshots and links, because when you put a link into a Google community post or a picture, it embeds it like this, right? In a way that is authentic, in a way that looks clean, and looks like any other social media. Same thing here. This is a link the student embedded, and now the students are giving each other feedback. Great post. This is definitely my favorite post so far. Stuff like this you can't do in most other learning platforms, in my experience, or at least not with the same fluidity, workflow, and ease. Is it odd that I really enjoy reading through and commenting on all these Hemingway posts, Adam asks, right? Adam's also the student who started the Google Rebellion, so I think that says a lot here.
Adam, what I'm seeing is you're currently on the constructing background knowledge slide, just so you know.
Uh-oh. How about now?
Still on that same slide for me.
Okay, let me exit full screen here. Do you see me in full screen still?
I do not see you yet, but that could be just my computer.
All right, so I should be back in like the editing window of slides. You with me?
I am not with you, but that doesn't mean that everyone else isn't. I still am on the constructing background knowledge slide.
Okay, I think you're just frozen because I went back to the Google Hangout page and I see it. So I'm hoping everyone else sees it. Viewers, let us know. But all right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up an actual Google community because I think that would be nice for everyone to see here. So this is my English 10 period 6 class from this past school year. I'm just going to scroll through here for a minute or two to show you what it looks like when it's all together. About this community on the right is my, those are resources that I want the students to have all the time. Things like their syllabus, things like their homework calendar, and so on. On the left is information about the community, events, photos, members. Everything else in between, but share what's new. I'm able to share anything I want, really. Text, I can make a poll, I can add a video, I can add a link. You have a lot of options here. And then everything in between is my stream, right? All of my posts, oops. And all of your posts go there and they go in order. So things, thank you, Sharon. Sharon's with us. So Danny, you're just frozen here. Are you still frozen, Dan?
I am, but that's okay.
All right, so all the posts go in order authentically. I've taught my students that when they share things, I like them to share published links to presentations, because when you do, like Reed did right here, his presentation, which will hopefully work, or mine next to it. Yep. It's playable like this. I can open up full screen, but it is playable like a feature, like a kind of similar to a video, kind of embeds itself. But I don't see the editing pane of Google Slides like I often do when someone shares a Google Slides presentation with me. It's clean, it's easy. Scrolling down more, my students shared a lot of presentations. Anything my students ever created, we put on the community. Here we have lots of presentations. Do I make better polls than Schoenbart, Elliot asks. He's the kid back in November who asked about the hashtag, so that's kind of funny. Now, I asked my students, we were doing an argument study. Is it better to follow the law or do what you think is right, was the question, or something like that. Go exactly what I was talking about before. The students did their own research, found an article, posted the article online, and wrote a paragraph response to it, right? Building the knowledge to lead to elements of argument. Then closure, I gave them a poll to weigh their options here. A lot of students embedding their own creations. See, these are students' videos that they actually created. And a lot of discussion is what I always go back to with Google Communities, right? Every student has a voice, every student has an audience, but that audience is closed to your community and your learners. There are plenty of times that I tell my students I expect them to share with the world, but right here, this is the place for them to share with each other in a private, closed environment that is safe, that is structured, and is educationally sound. So you'll see a range of projects here, right? GoAnimate, Powtoons, Google Slides, Prezis, original videos that students are creating, posting, collaborating on, interviewing other students, creating original content, a whole range of learning going on here on our community. Now, the links to the communities and posts that are on the presentation itself, which I tweeted out a few minutes ago, and I will do again, are closed to my school's domain, so you won't be able to actually log in and see this on your own, but you can see plenty of the public ones along with any of the screenshots that I put on our presentation. I'm going to jump back here to the global presentation. Give you one other example that I like. So I asked students in studying Jupiter here is the namesake. I asked them to research arranged marriage, and my students were asked how strong are arranged marriages. I asked them to find the statistic. So here Tim found his statistic for Do Now. This was a 10-minute activity, right? Nice and simple. Dan did the same thing. He cited his source, right? Wrote about his source, briefly gave his evidence. But then the next day, do Gogol and Mashumi have a strong relationship? Post a claim and support it with a direct quote. This was such an easy way for a student to do their own research, construct their own knowledge, and then for me to extend that knowledge with classroom learning and apply it to the text that we are learning that we are working on in the classroom. So this really, I love this idea of go learn, go bring it to the classroom, collaborate with each other, and then let's take it a step further, right? Let's apply it, synthesize it, and create from it. We have a couple more examples here. Students writing responses to music videos in analyzing poetry and literary elements. Loads of discussion here. A Fence's literary analysis group work project with lots of resources, and a few more student videos with their feedback. And I'm intentionally scrolling through quickly here because I don't intend to play this all for you, but I want to show you the resources in case you're looking for more. As we wrap up here, I want to thank those of you who joined us. I'm sorry about our technical difficulties earlier. And switch back here. And I want to remind you guys that if you have any other questions or ideas about communities or would like to discuss it more, whether that be on Twitter, Google Hangout, email, or anywhere else, I'd love to talk about it. I find that communities are the most underrated of all Google tools and undervalued in schools today, and I really think they have the potential for so much more. So we hope you guys enjoyed learning about communities here and are enjoying edcampGlobal. I also am writing about communities. I wrote this week and will write again next week on my blog at aschoenbart.com, just like my name. So we'd love it if you check that out if you're interested as well.
Thank you guys so much for joining us, and please feel free to reach out on Twitter because we would love to continue the conversations.
All right, I'll tweet out links to this session and to the presentation in case you missed it earlier, so you can all have a copy of any of our resources if you're interested. Thanks again.